Hey, good morning everybody. So today I want to show you how to use the extruder in my classroom. So the first thing you need to know is whether you're making coils with this, in which case you need to have the little extra bit so you can block off the ones you're not going to use, and only the one you actually need is going to be, you know, the one that shows through. So that's one thing. Or if you're trying to create a hollow shape, then you want to make sure that you have all the pieces that you need for the hollow shape. So that's like the inner piece and the outer piece. That's what I'm going to be demoing today. But they both kind of end up in the same way. These two just float when you're putting them in here. And this one has a little bit of extra pieces that we need to do. And there are a lot of different sizes of these. So like make sure that when you're picking out your pieces, like if I picked this one, this would be a super thick tube. So make sure that when you're picking them, that you are picking the appropriate size inner piece to match the outer piece. You're also going to need this piece right here. You want to make sure all the bolts are kind of tightened down all the way right here, and it goes on like this. So you push those through the edges right there. You put the little washers on each of these over here. You're gonna screw the put the nuts on. Let's see, here's the other one. And then it's the same thing for the middle piece. Now notice I'm not using a tool for this, so I've added in the middle piece and then the washer and then the nut again. I'm not trying to tighten the snot out of these things. Like, you know, you want it to not move, but you don't want it so tight that you have to have a tool to get it off, because it's just gonna make it a pain in the butt. So you really want to get it as tight as you can just with your fingers. But then once it's tight with just your fingers, then you should be good. So to actually use the extruder, I have a trash can right here, and depending on whether you need a really long extrusion or a shorter one, you can either move the trash can, or I just put a board across the trash can, so I have a place to have my extruded piece come out, and I have my extra pieces to sit on. So these little wing nuts right here, so they shouldn't ever be like crazy tight. So all these pieces should never, don't tighten them with a tool. Okay, because you want them to not fall off, but you don't want to make it crazy hard to get off. But they should just be able to swing to the side. So that's this bit right here. There's a little wing nut and a washer, and these rotate, okay? So what you're gonna do now, if you're using this one, this gets placed right here, and then that piece gets stuck back on top. But I'm gonna do the hollow one. So this hollow one, the only, you know, difference is this piece right here, this big piece, needs to go inside the machine, okay? So it needs to go inside the extruder like that. And then you take this bottom piece, and you're gonna flip these up like this. Now, if you didn't give it enough, like if you didn't open it, you might need to open it a little bit further to get these to go on. And then you want to tighten it again, and like I said, don't use a tool, you're just tightening it as tight as your fingers can go. And then the other thing that you need is the arm, and you need some clay. So this is the barrel right here. We're gonna fill the barrel with clay, and then we're gonna add on the arm to that. And you want to kind of fill it pretty good. You don't want it up above the edge here, but you want to fill a lot, depending on how much, you know, how much of an extrusion you're gonna need. If you're making coils, then, you know, it just depends. Use the amount that you actually need. So make sure it's gonna fit in here. Go ahead and drop it in. And then this arm has multiple parts. There's like this little loopy thing. This loopy thing right here goes on top up here. If you are vertically challenged, we generally work in pairs on this, so pick someone who's taller or have them help you out. But basically you're making sure that the plunger is going into the barrel and that the loop is around the edge. Now the handle, I always think it's kind of funny because like there's a handle on this, but when students use this, they have a tendency to want to, you know, hold it way up here. Well, it's a lever, so you get more power if you hold it out over here. So at first, and it's really important to keep it like nice and straight with the bar right here. So at first it's really easy to move and you're just going up and down and you can see this thing moving in the background. So at first it's really easy to just go up and down, but at a certain point you're gonna start feeling resistance, and that's when using the handle becomes more important because you can have more pressure if you use the handle. Because if you're using the handle and you need to, you can put your body weight on it. But, so that way it doesn't matter how big or small you are. But you want to go slow, even pressure, and you can see it starting to squeeze out here. And like I said, I'm using the hollow die piece, so that way you can see how to use both. But see if I cut it, how I'm extruding out a hollow piece. It works the same way with the coil one, it's just not hollow. So usually I work in pairs when I do this. So I'll have one student will hold this, especially if it's the hollow die one, and one student will push this down. But you're just gonna kind of keep on going until it's the length that you want. And like I said, your goal is to do this as evenly as possible. And when you get to, you know, lower down, or you run out of clay, like if it stops moving, it's probably out of clay, right? So that's why we want to kind of fill it fairly well. So once it's the length that you want, then use a wire cutter to cut it off. So you can see right here, I've got this nice hollow tube. Cut it off. Now the main thing that's really important about this is if you leave extra clay in here, there's a ton of extra clay in here. If you leave extra clay in here, it is not an easy thing for the next person to get out, and we will not be able to use this in class. So it's really important that you clean it. So to clean it, it's not too difficult, especially if you're doing coils. This one's a little bit more work because there's more clay up in the top. But to clean it, you're gonna loosen the ends. And then this part doesn't wanna come out super easy, but if you use the plunger to push it, then this, you know, the plunger pushes the rest of the clay out. So you can see how it works. Yeah. So the main thing is you need to get all this clay off. Now this clay had a little bit of the brown clay left over from like heck long ago because the last person to use this, and they cleaned off this part, but you also have to, this is the biggest part, that's the pain in the booty, is getting the plunger back up. So you want to hold on to this little loopy thing right here, and you kind of go backwards with plunging it until it loosens up enough that you can pull it up. Okay, I'm just gonna set it on here for a second. But the last person didn't clean up in here. You gotta clean, like there's extra clay that's in here. So you gotta make sure that you pull any extra clay out from the sides where it was squeezed, where the plunger squeezed past, okay? So get it all clean. You always gotta get, like if you want to use the hollow die thing, you got to get that from me. I have it behind my desk. And once everything's all cleaned out, you put this back on, twist it tight, And then the handle, in my classroom, the handle gets hung back on the giant hook back here, okay? So give it a try. Happy making, make amazing things because you're amazing. All right, thanks everybody.